I'm going to talk you through our potential question lists that Lytchett students should have on their email. I want to be completely honest, and I have not made these. I've downloaded these online. I'm just going to explain how they work. So there's a sheet for each theme. So theme 1, theme 2, theme 3, and theme 4. And then in the first column is the sub-theme, so theme 1A, birth stories, 1B, resurrection, and so on. And then whether it's a part A or a part B. And then here are a number of marks, so 20 or 30. Where the highlighted grey, that is where a question or a very similar question has already been asked and the paper is listed there. Where it's highlighted yellow, that's where we think it's a question that is quite likely to come up. As I said on the other video where we were making, I don't want to say predictions because it's not certain, but giving top tips for the exam on the 4th of June for Christianity, giving advice, we think this is likely to be there. And those gaps are highlighted here in yellow. So if we start with theme 1, you can see just from the highlighted grey that actually the start of theme 1 is quite heavily tested. I would say, however, still be ready with an NT right question on the resurrection, because you could possibly use that information in theme 1F, which is untested anyway, and perhaps have something ready on the nature of the resurrected body. So they're my tips for themes 1A to C. But the main part of theme 1 that is not tested has to be two views of Jesus. That's theme 1F, so it's Crossan and NT right. If you look at your specification, there's quite a lot for NT right and Crossan to learn, and each phrase or bullet point could be a question. So go over your spec for 1F with a fine tooth comb and check you understand it all and you could write about it all. A secondary tip is Bultmann and Kerygma. That has only appeared on the specification paper. But my main tip is this stuff here, theme 1F, and that's why we have shared and will continue to share some exemplar answers. Theme 2. Now you can see theme 2 is quite heavily tested, but it did not appear at all on the A2 paper last year, and so I would be amazed if it's not on the A2 paper in June 2019. So these are my tips for what I would focus on, and it's Maltman. And have a look carefully at the specification for Maltman. So these questions, suffering God is very obvious, but there's also stuff on the spec about the view that God is impassible, and that could be a question that could catch you out. That's why it's important you look at your specification. So I would definitely say have a go at revising these questions. I've just noted that I've not highlighted the untested, the Maltman part B. So they are, is it going to let me do it on screen? They are here. Okay, so also have a go at those. Then the other tip is Luther. Now this is a bit of an odd one because Lytchett students know we've been banging on about Luther being an untested bit of the spec, and he appeared on the AS 2019 paper, but I think he could still appear. It's a possibility, particularly if they offer you two questions from theme 2. And so again, I would say Luther, have him ready as a secondary topic. Again, I haven't highlighted the part 2s for Luther, so I will just do that now, if it will let me. Yes, it will. So that's theme 2. Okay, so Maltman and Luther. Then theme 3. To be honest, there isn't much in theme 3 that has been tested because it can only be covered in an A2 paper. And so the whole of theme 3A, attitudes to wealth, the whole of theme 3B, which is about migration and the challenge of migration. Don't forget the reverse mission movement is in there too. The whole of theme 3D, which is where you're going to find about, whether the laws should be reflected in Christianity, and also church schools. That's quite a specific question that needs preparing for. We've been through that in a revision session together. And then the 3F is on inclusive and exclusivist views. This is where you find Rana and Hick. And again, I know that that's a bit of the spec that Lytchett students feel a little bit shaky on, so I would focus on that in revision. Then theme 4, so the last theme. Theme 4 is another topic that is quite heavily tested, and it wasn't used at all in the AS 2019 paper, so they may drop it for the A2 paper as well. The only real gap in terms of a whole sub-theme really is Christmas, and that's not even a whole sub-theme because Christmas and Easter are together, but Christmas has never been mentioned in the specimen papers or any paper ever since, and so that is where I would start with my revision. Other possible gaps are some bits on the World Council of Churches and the ecumenical movement. There was quite a nice general question on the specimen paper. They could be quite mean and look at some of these more specific questions. And then Mrs. McGee's favourite bit of the spec, liberation theology. And again, there was quite a nice general question on the specification paper. So it could be more specific, and be aware that these scholars are named on the spec. And so there could be a question that just names these liberation theologians. And that could be challenging, so be prepared for that. So, to repeat, big tip for theme 1, NT Wright Crossan theme 1F. Check out our videos where we've shared exemplar answers. Theme 2, big tip is Maltman and Suffering God. Theme 3, there's no big tip because it's just completely untested. Theme 4, Christmas, would be my starting point. And then my next step would be a challenging specific question on liberation theology or World Council of Churches.